Depending on who you get your information from might determine what perspective they put on a particular topic. So for example, if they're more of a Democrat, they might only give you a set of facts that makes President Biden look good, whereas if someone is more of a Republican, they might only give you a set of facts to make President Biden look bad. And while it's absolutely true that I'm a libertarian conservative, I lean to the right, I still want to be able to call a spade a spade. I think far too many people get caught up in the partisan aspect of politics, and anytime someone that they like is in office, their integrity gets thrown out the window, and they suddenly have to agree with everything that they do, or even if they do something bad, they have to spin it so that way it'll make them look good, because they feel that person might lose support, or people will look at them differently because they're calling them out for something. So another reason why I'm having this political journey is because I want to educate you to the best of my ability and give you the proper information so that way you know the whole story around a particular news story or an argument being made. And really, when you get into a debate with someone, right, this is another thing I'm thinking about. An argument, a debate, I don't want you to only know the right-wing perspective because that's the way you kind of look at things, right? Or maybe that's what makes you feel a little better when you hear someone on the right standing up for something you believe in. I want you to know everything about it. So really, if you know whether it's true, whether it's false, if it's somewhere in the middle, and that way you don't get stumped when you're debating someone on the other side of the aisle. So that being said, what we're going to talk about today is three particular topics that are somewhat in the news right now. So the first one is going to be talking about oil prices. So the reason why we have the Keystone Pipeline photo, we'll get to that in a second, but depending on where you are, and I will go out on a limb when I say it's probably everywhere in America, but let me know if I'm exaggerating. I think everywhere in America, gas prices are going up. Just my perspective. But a lot of people are saying the reason why gas prices are going up is it's Biden's fault, or no, it's some other reason. So let's talk about that. So one argument that a lot of people on the left are making right now is that the reason why gas prices are going up is because of the recent Texas winter storm. They had that once in a lifetime fluke thing where temperatures dropped and they actually had snow in Texas. So it wiped out power lines. And in case you didn't know, Texas is actually a very big production state in terms of oil and I think even natural gases, but I know oil for like 100%. It's absolutely true. I want to say it's like estimated between like 30 and 40% is, produced right there in Texas. So obviously with electricity down, they weren't able to get the supply out there. So people said, boom, that's the reason why I stopped trying to blame Biden. And what I will say is, I think it's absolutely true that that contributed to some of the problem. But what people on the left leave out is there's other things going on too. It's not always just that one fact that you agree with and suddenly your point is 100% accurate. So the other thing that they failed to take into account is Biden himself, in one of the many executive orders that he has signed to this date. I actually have no idea what number he's on right now, but he halted construction of the Keystone Pipeline. And that's that huge project that's been going on for, I think, probably about the last 10 years, where the whole idea is they're trying to expand the Keystone Pipeline, and that brings oil from Canada, and it'll go through the United States. Hopefully you can kind of make out the photo. So the idea behind it is to transport a mass amount of oil for cheaper because it'll be more efficient, which would obviously help prices come down. So obviously he signed that executive order halting the further construction of the Keystone Pipeline. So I think that's one issue. And another one, they also made it to where they're not allowing any new permits to be opened up on federal land for fracking. So while it's true he didn't totally ban fracking, he did say he slowly wants to phase it out. And by halting further construction of the Keystone Pipeline and making it to where you can't frack or open up new permits on land to frack, well, eventually the supply is going to run out, but the demand is going to constantly increase, which is going to drive up prices, which is, I think, what you're probably seeing going on here. And another thing is more states are starting to reopen. I know that's a whole political debate in and of itself, but with more states reopening, you're getting more demand, which is another reason why I think the price is going up. So I don't think it's factual or consistent to just say it's the Texas winter storm or that it's all President Biden. But if I had to make my own guess, trying not to be the most biased person in the world, I would attribute more of the blame to President Biden for the gas prices going up. So hopefully you learned a little bit there. Feel free to comment if you have a different thought or, if you just want to talk about that. Let's get into the next one. And I took a photo. This is a snapshot of the S&P 500. So another thing a lot of people are trying to say is that, well, former President Donald Trump said that if President Biden, then at the time just Joe Biden, if he gets inaugurated, the stock market is going to crash. So doesn't this prove him right? So let's chat about it for a little bit. This chart, S&P 500, and this shows the crash that's going on right now. Reason why I use quotations is because hopefully you can see it's really not a big crash. People are over exaggerating just a little bit. You know, while it's absolutely true that no one knows what will happen tomorrow, although I think at the time of recording, I just looked, the futures, I think everything's up like 100, the Dow is up 130 points. So everything looks positive right now, but you can't really determine, right? Something can happen in the morning and stocks just drop. But you can kind of see if you, hopefully you can make out, I left the cursor on a particular part of this photo, and that way you could see the date. And it's February 16th was the last time we were at all-time highs. And we're just, you know, like the first week into March. So we're down a little bit, but it's not by a huge amount. So the reason why I'm not going to attribute the entire blame for the stock market crash to President Biden is because there's so many other things going on. Let's talk about that. So first, what you have going on is investors are starting to weigh in on what inflation might do, you know, or what type of inflation, you know, what amount of inflation might come to the USA because of how much money we printed. Remember during the previous shutdown, you know, 2020, it was crazy. So investors are weighing that in. Some of them are starting to kind of pull out because they're a little skeptical. And especially with President Biden at the time of recording the video, I think they just passed the $1.9 trillion, the new stimulus package. So again, more printed money, so more fear of inflation. Another thing, and there's so many financial guys on YouTube that do a much better job of explaining, there's something called an inverted yield curve. I think I'm doing it justice. So when people start to see that, typically it means that people are very kind of skeptical of what's going to be happening in the near future. And kind of the last thing, never look at the stock market as the economy because it's not. Typically, what people say is it's trying to predict the next 3 to 6 months of economic activity. So that's why when we were really down in the dumps with the virus going on, you kind of saw the stock market rise a little bit because people were getting hope that in 3 to 6 months, you would have more states reopening, right? Things along those lines. And you can get into, well, it was because of the money being printed. That's why we were getting to all-time highs. All true stuff. But hopefully you kind of understand a little more about what's going on with the stock market. And again, with people trying to predict the next 3 to 6 months, you have a president in the White House right now that is not very open to reopening America. So I think that's kind of another scare that's getting into people, making them say, you know what? Maybe we're getting a little ahead of ourselves. Maybe the stocks that I'm investing in aren't going to be as valuable as I think they are. So I think that's why people are starting to pull out just a little bit. So on this one, is President Biden to blame for everything? I think he can get some of the blame, but there's been some previous issues kind of going on, somewhat unrelated to him. So this is kind of a toss-up right here. Let me know if you disagree with me. But the last one we're going to talk about is the vaccine distribution. So it's probably something you've been hearing about a whole lot in the news. They're talking about, who knows at this rate, I think they're saying by the end of May, there might have enough vaccines for everyone in America that wants to be vaccinated. They can get their first dose, something like that. It changes every day. But a lot of people on the left are trying to attribute the recent surge and how much vaccinations are being done and really just the amount of it to the new administration. They're saying this is what happens when you have a competent president in the White House. And, you know, while it's a funny dig, haha, okay, yeah, it proves your point because you're only looking at it from like a very narrow-minded perspective. Let's just talk about this super quick. It takes months for these vaccinations to be produced. So Joe Biden, President Biden that is, he's only been our president for what, like a month and a half? So the reality is these vaccinations were being produced under the previous administration. Does that mean that Donald Trump was in the lab making them himself? No. But what you have to obviously sit there and say is, you know, President Trump, his administration went through the lows of the virus going on. And really under them, they were helping get hope little by little, getting back to our feet. And these vaccines were being produced. So I know it took a while from the startup, but now you're just seeing kind of that exponential growth. So it doesn't really matter that President Biden is in office right now. It wouldn't matter if Trump was reelected or if it was a third-party person. Whoever was in right now, they would be kind of on the receiving end of the fruits of everyone's past labor. I guess that's the best way that I could put it. These vaccines were going to be produced in a mass amount regardless of who was president. So hopefully you understand just a little bit about that. I know a lot of people on the left trying to slam dunk say, boom, roasted, right? But that's kind of super easy to just be like, all right, you're just riding the wave of the previous guy that was in there. So hopefully that kind of clears up some of the things. I know a little bit of a different video, but I always want to do my best, talk about the recent news, help you learn a little bit more about what's going on. So if you made it this far, consider liking, commenting, subscribe even. I only post videos Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I'm over on Instagram. I post every single day there. So if you're looking for maybe a new voice, making some political commentary, give me a shot. You never know. I might even change your mind on a certain topic. But at the very least, I appreciate you checking out the video, and I hope to see you again sometime soon.